Oh my gosh, you guys. I'm actually a little embarrassed to share this story about how I recently got scammed out of $1,500. Gone. But I do feel it's important to share this story if I can help even one person avoid this type of scam, which I have since discovered is a fairly common scam. And please, if you have been scammed or almost scammed or know someone who has been scammed, please share in the comment box so we can all help protect each other. And also, please make sure to give this video a thumbs up so YouTube shares it with as many people as possible. You know, I thought I was being really cautious about these types of things. Several years ago, I put a freeze on all my credit reports from Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion so that nobody can open an account in my name. I will put information on that in the description box below, and I highly recommend looking into it. And then, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, I came so close to falling for a telephone scam. I was at work and I received a voicemail from the electric company saying my electricity was about to be shut off. So I immediately called them back, which was my first mistake. Never deal with the phone call. Always log in directly to whatever account they're calling you about. Anyway, I called them back and it sounded completely legitimate. You know, all the voicemail, press 1, press 2, and you know, this guy came on the phone and he was a little hard to understand, and I got disconnected, and I think they did that on purpose to frustrate me. Anyway, I called them back. He had me going for about 20 minutes, even though I knew I had paid my phone bill, my electricity bill. In fact, I had logged into my bank account and I said, I paid this bill on such and so date. It's like, it doesn't matter. They're on their way to your house right now to turn your electricity off. Anyway, like I said, he had me going for probably about 20 minutes until he said, the only way you can prevent your electricity from being shut off is to go to Walgreens and buy a cash card. My gosh, I knew immediately it was a scam, and I hung up. He had the nerve to call me back. Anyway, that taught me never to trust a phone call. If you get a phone call, anytime I get a phone call, either I don't answer it, I don't give any information. Any phone call about any account, I go straight to that account, log in, and verify it. And since I've been on YouTube, I've been hyper alert to scams. You know, almost every time I try to do a YouTube giveaway, the scammers come out of the woodwork. They will impersonate a YouTuber, reply to a comment saying that you are the winner, and they will tell you to text or email them, which of course then they're going to ask for some money. And you know, even though every single time I do a giveaway, I always say in the video, if you receive a reply that you are a winner, it is a scam. I always announce winners either verbally in a video or sometimes on a community post. But even though I always give those warnings, I very often still get an email or two from someone saying I was notified that I was the winner. And I always feel really bad saying, no, you're not the winner. It was a scam. It actually makes me not want to do giveaways anymore. But I still do giveaways. I'm just trying to be really careful to monitor the comments and delete and report. And please, no YouTuber will ever reply to a comment saying that you are a winner. The other thing that has been happening, I don't know, the past year or two, and this is terrifying for me as a YouTuber, is that there have been several channels, YouTube channels, that have been completely hacked, stolen, and taken over by hackers. What they will do is it'll look like a company sending you an email, and they will tell you to click a link, and when you click that link, your channel is immediately hacked, stolen, and taken over, and the YouTuber has no access to their channel anymore. And these hackers do really weird things with the channels. And I've watched several videos on this, and these YouTubers have a really hard time getting their channel back. So if you are a YouTuber it is very important to have a separate business email. So you have one email for Google YouTube account and a completely separate email for business. Even so, I never click any links. I always go directly to whatever website they're referencing. I don't know. Links have become pretty scary to me lately. All this to say, scammers are everywhere. And sometimes it feels like they're actually targeting women, especially older women, especially older single women, although anyone can be scammed. You know, as careful as I thought I was being, it never occurred to me that I might actually call a fraudulent phone number. So here's the story. I had booked a flight to Minneapolis for sort of an informal family reunion. My dad and his wife were going to be in town from Florida, and my daughter was going to be in town from California. And I hadn't been back to Minnesota in a couple of years, so I was really, really excited for this trip. Just a few days before I was supposed to leave on my trip, Bosley, my precious 15-and-a-half-year-old mini golden doodle, came this close to dying. It was a normal morning, and I had just put his kibble down in the bathroom where I always feed him, and I was sitting on the couch drinking coffee as usual, when Bosley came racing out of the bathroom like he had been attacked or he was being chased, and he spun around in a circle, and he collapsed on the floor, shaking like he was having a seizure. You know, I didn't know if he was having a seizure or a heart attack or a stroke, so I raced over to him, and as I picked him up, he started to go limp. I literally thought he was dying. Somehow, my nursing instinct kicked in, and I tipped him upside down, and I stuck my fingers down his throat, and I pulled out 3 pieces of kibble that had lodged way back in the back of his throat. He did come to right away, and he made a full recovery pretty quickly. Although now I only give him canned food. You know, senior dogs could have some swallowing problems, and he is missing a few teeth. So now it's canned food only. However, it was such an incredibly scary and traumatic experience for both of us that I knew I couldn't leave him, even though I totally trust my cousins who usually take care of him. So I spent the next couple of hours researching how could I bring Bosley on the plane with me. Ultimately, at 25 pounds, he's just a little too big to fit under the seat. And at 15-and-a-half, I just felt he's too old to fly for the first time anyway. Now, I did consider canceling my trip altogether, but I really wanted to see my dad and my daughter and my other family and friends. So I decided to make the 20-hour cross-country drive from New York to Minnesota and take Bosley with me. So I logged onto my Delta SkyMiles app on my phone to cancel my flight. You know, I am a fairly experienced flyer, and I always pay that little bit extra to make sure I have a refundable flight. But for some reason, the cancellation just didn't seem to be going through. So after playing around with the app for a while, I went on my computer, on my laptop, and tried it there. I don't know why I thought that would be helpful. Anyway, I kept getting error messages. I just wanted to talk to a person, and I could not find a phone number anywhere on the app or on the website. I'm sure I was just too rushed and too stressed, but it almost seems like they try to hide the phone number. So, of course, I Googled. Now, I do know that sometimes third-party agencies and sites show up when you Google, so I thought I was being really careful to choose a Delta Direct phone number. Now, mind you, by this time it was late afternoon. I was exhausted, I was traumatized, I was stressed, which in retrospect made me the perfect candidate to fall for a scam. So I called the Google Delta number, and I got a very nice reservationist. He asked for my name and my confirmation number as usual. He looked up my ticket and he knew all the details: dates, destination, flight times. What I have since discovered is that anyone can look up flight details as long as they have the name and the confirmation number. Anyway, he said, yes, this should be a fully refundable flight. Let me try to find out what the problem is. He put me on hold a couple of times, and he finally came back and said there was a glitch in the system but that his supervisor had helped him find a workaround. And the workaround was he was going to book a duplicate ticket, which would trigger an error, enabling him to cancel and refund both reservations. Now, if that wasn't enough of a red flag, the price of the new ticket should have definitely triggered an alarm bell. Because although my original ticket was only $450, the price of the new ticket was going to be $1,470. However, we were only a couple of days out from departure, and we all know that the closer you book to departure, the higher the price. Anyway, he guaranteed I would be fully refunded for both reservations, and for my inconvenience, he graciously gave me a $250 e-credit towards my next flight. And he even gave me his extension in case I needed any further assistance with booking. He sent me a very convincing confirmation email with all the details of the refund. Now, I'm pretty sure you can see all the red flags here, but I was so relieved to have this taken care of. Not only was I very worried about Bosley, but I only had a couple of days to get ready for a cross-country road trip. I needed new tires and an oil change and hotels. And in retrospect, the fact that I was stressed, exhausted, and rushed just made me extra vulnerable to fall for this scam. The most embarrassing part about all this is how I raved to my friends and family about how great Delta was, how this very helpful agent gave me a credit towards my next flight, and now I even had my own personal reservationist. Anyway, I put the whole thing out of my mind. Bosley and I had a wonderful time in Minnesota, and when I got home, of course, no credit. So I pulled up the confirmation email and I emailed him. And I called him and left a voicemail multiple times. Crickets. So I finally decided to try another Delta phone number. And once again, I Googled Delta, and this time, luckily, I got the actual Delta phone number. And as I waited the 30 or 40 minutes on hold, I was studying that confirmation email. And the closer I looked, the sicker I felt, because I realized this just had to be a scam. You know, the refund just didn't make any sense at all. And the sender of the email did not send Delta. You know, the email looked very legitimate. It had the Delta logo and everything. However, when you looked really closely, the sender of the email did not say Delta. It just said reservations. So by the time the actual Delta agent came on the phone, I knew I had been scammed. And she did, in fact, verify that I had been scammed and that there was nothing she could do to help me. However, ironically, she did verify that I actually had canceled my original flight in my app, but instead of giving me a refund, they had issued an e-credit, which is probably why I kept getting error messages when I tried to cancel it online. At least I didn't lose the original $450. So next I called American Express. They protect you from fraud, right? Unfortunately, American Express said that although they do protect cardholders against unauthorized fraudulent purchases, they cannot protect cardholders who voluntarily give their account information out to a scammer. So I am completely out, almost $1,500, which is a huge amount of money to me. But even worse is how stupid I feel. You know, I haven't even told my family about this, so I just didn't want to keep repeating this story over and over. So I am sending this video to my family. Yes, I got scammed. However, I was talking to a friend about this, and she said the same thing happened to her mother. So her mother had reservations on Air Canada, and a few days before her flight, she started having back pain, and she wanted to upgrade her ticket. So she Googled and called Air Canada and upgraded her seat to first class. She actually showed up at the gate thinking she had a first-class seat. Unfortunately, the ticket agent said, no, you didn't talk to us. That was a scam. And she was out $1,000. Now, I feel really bad for her mom, but it made me feel a little bit better that I wasn't the only one this happened to. And since doing a little bit of research, I have discovered that this is a fairly common scam, which is why I knew I had to share my story. You know, there are so many different scams out there, and it's getting even scarier now with AI. AI can actually imitate the voice of a loved one, call you, say they're in trouble and need money. These people are truly evil, but they are very skilled at what they do. So I am going to link some other scam story videos in the description box below, and please share your stories in the comment box so we can all protect each other. And remember to give this video a thumbs up. That really does encourage YouTube to share this video with more people, and the more people that we can warn, the better. And with that, I hope you have a wonderful day, and please be very, very careful out there.